Welcome back to the first edition of the Sleep Deprivation podcast. I'm your host, No, aka No Thank You, aka The Swinging Man, aka Young Hats. Go by many names, I go by many places, and today I stayed up all night. And as per usual, when I do this, when I say per usual, I mean the last time I did this, I had a bunch of brilliant, genius, amazing, incredible ideas, but don't want to spam you all with videos all day. Don't want to spam you innocent people with my not so innocent intellect, genius level Rick and Morty intellect. So I have decided to collect all my thoughts for the day in this edited podcast, where I'll be coming back to it as I have different thinky ones, and I'll be reporting on them in this podcast. I suspect a lot of them will have to do with caffeine, sleep, and Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency on Netflix. So I just made a video about this, but I have more thoughts. Firstly, the main characters should have been gay. The lead, the Elijah Wood's character, and Dirk have way more chemistry than Elijah Wood's character and the female romantic interest character. Dirk is already pretty much coded gay. There's not much difference between posh British and flamboyant gay when you think about it. So I don't know why they didn't go with it, especially because it's not like it's on Netflix and it's directed by Max Landis. This is the prime territory for gayification, but they just didn't do it. In fact, so far, lots of racially diverse characters, no queer characters, which is surprising to me. Who knows? Maybe it'll happen later. But so far, no overtly queer characters. So there's that. Also, I got to give it credit because there's a scene. There's a actually brilliant scene in this episode which I'm watching where it's kind of a cleverly disguised recap, but like it makes sense in the context of the story. Where, because two groups of characters have been separated for like an episode, and each episode's 45 minutes long. A lot happens, so two groups of characters have been separated for a while, and they finally regroup, and they quickly spout back at each other the stuff that they've learned, and I mean it recaps the audience, but also it shows it's like a funny meme moment because it's acknowledging how absurd it is, which. It's supposed to be absurd, but it's never acknowledged how absurd it is in a comedy sense. It's only been like, this is ridiculous, I'm freaking out and dying. But finally, there's a slightly less, a moment with lower tension where they can actually acknowledge the inherent comedy of this absurdist thing that they've set up, which is, I'm surprised it took them this long, but I'm glad they waited because this scene is pretty brilliant. And I gotta say, this is incredible. This shows that this show knows what it's doing, which is why it's so weird, because it's not just bad, it's good. It knows what it's doing. There's about 50 different plot lines it's juggling, and as they were going over them, there was not one point where I was like, wait, what? When did that happen? Right? Like, they're saying shit like it's literally the sort of thing, like if you were to just watch that clip, it would look like a bunch of people just spouting nonsense at each other. Like they're like, well, the kitten turned out to have a shark inside of it, and the bold guys attacked us in the forest, and we just threw the kitten at them, and it bit them in half. So that must have been what killed the guy. The kitten was the murder weapon. Like that. I mean, it kind of makes sense, but then remember, there's a bunch of other shit happening. You have to watch the show to understand what the fuck I'm talking about. I'm not gonna bother explaining myself. I have no duty to you. But just accept that it's. But that was the moment where I was like, yeah, I wasn't wrong in saying that this show is well written plot wise. From a narrative standpoint, this show is incredibly well done. I think what I need to do is just approach this show in a similar, like, as if it really was a light novel from the late 90s. I have to really focus on this, and also like the sort of mixed with like an over the top kind of Machine Girl-esque Electric Dragon kind of thing, where it's sort of, you know, knowingly over the top without actually winking at the audience at any point, which I can't tell if it's actually going for. I mean, it's clearly going for over the top. That's not what I'm saying, but I mean, like, the characters particularly. What I think would have been really interesting for them to do is you know, like Dirk's character. If you see the show, you'll instantly understand what his character is. He's the quirky British lad, like quirky British, kind of campy, sort of gay coded, but not quite. You know, posh British guy who's basically the male equivalent of the manic pixie dream girl. You know, but they tried to make it so that he's not actually doesn't actually have everything under control. He's kind of supposed to be a little bit broken, but they didn't really go all in on that because I would have ruined his character. But what they should have done is explored, what if this person actually existed in real life? How would they interact with the world around them? Because that would be interesting. I've never seen that before, and that would be really cool. We didn't do that, and I can understand why they didn't do that. That would have completely changed the tone of the entire show and taken the plot in an entirely different direction. But that would have been really interesting, and I kind of want to see that. Yeah, I'm gonna continue drinking my coffee and watching this show, and I guess I'll report back in the next segment of this podcast. So I just finished watching Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency on Netflix. Now there are 3 possibilities for what happened. Either possibility 1, my rapidly progressing delirium from lack of sleep has made negative aspects of the show less noticeable, or made me less sentient and less able to pay attention to negative aspects of the show. That's option 1. Option 2 is that the show just actually got much better towards the end. And option 3, I've forgotten. I've forgotten what option 3 was. Let me do a little bit of thinking about this, if I can remember what it was. I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about it. I forgot. I genuinely don't remember what option 3 was. Oh yeah, option 3 was So option 1, delirium made me not notice bad parts of the show. Option 2, the show just actually got better. Or option 3, I understood the intentions of what the tone the show was going for was better. That was barely a sentence, but it clicked for me that like I understood what the show was going for, and therefore I could enjoy it more fully. So it's probably a combination of all 3 of those things, and those 3 things are probably all interconnected, which fits with the theme of the show quite nicely. So really, in a show like this, which hinges on sort of setting things up at the beginning and then slowly teasing out answers to the audience, and then the conclusion, what matters is putting a satisfying, okay, so spoilers. I'm already well into spoilers here, in the whatever I talked about before, but essentially the show's about time. Actually, you could pick up that the show has a time travel element in the first episode. I picked that up. I'm pretty sure anyone should notice that. So the show's about time travel at some point. So there's all this stuff about time loops. It's very Steins Gatesy in that respect, and a big part of any time travel show where you see the outcome before you see the event is well, it's all about playing with cause and effect. You see the effect, and then the point of the show is to deliver a satisfying cause, which makes you go, I understand. Yeah, that's cool. That was awesome. I see what they did there. It was sick. Yeah, dope. Awesome. Okay, makes sense. And they did that. It was incredibly anime. The show got progressively more anime as it went on. At one point, there literally was a steampunk mech shooting people. It's fucking, yeah. It became really good. Let me talk about the best characters in the show. There's this one girl who is from the same like government experiment as Dirk, but instead of being able to like be a detective and things sort of happen all interconnectedly around her, her thing is that the interconnectedness, she uses it to just kill people, and whoever she kills always turns out to be a bad person. And she's also unable to be killed. Coincidences will just happen where she can't be killed, and it's fucking badass. It's super edgy. It's super young adult kind of edgy, Shadow the Hedgehog kind of edgy, but it's also badass as fuck. Her accent is super stupid. The voice that she does is like almost ruins it because it's so over the top, but her character is very over the top. And like a lot of things are unbelievable. Like she's never eaten pork before, doesn't know what pork is. Yeah, that's like she didn't know that animals had different names when you're eating them than when they're animals. I feel like that's a little bit ridiculous since she knows the English language. But her character is fucking sick. There's this bit where she's like the way she'll just go around like shooting people and just have no consequences, and they'll like figure it out in the world so it all makes sense. It's fucking sick. There's one part where she gets a guy killed by just like waving at him, and the guy steps into the road and gets run over by a car. Then later on there's a news broadcast. It turns out that guy had like people kidnapped and trapped in his basement. Like it's all that sort of thing where everyone she kills turns out to be a bad person. It's fucking sick. And then her arc basically starts with her kidnapping this other guy, and this is where the best relationship in the entire show happens, because her and him actually have fucking great chemistry. You see him slowly go from thinking she's just an insane person to her he slowly comes around to the fact that she actually is not just insane and has these real powers, and then eventually learns to like enjoy it and play along. And then there's probably the best moment in the entire show is when the two groups finally meet up like properly at the end, or like towards the end, when they're getting the time machine all set up, and the guy fixes the thing that he made for the time machine and sends it back in time to close the time loop. And then Elijah Wood's character and the black guy with the killing person, I'm not very good with names if you hadn't noticed, they just look at each other and they just shrug because they're both in the same situation. It's fucking great. It's a great shot. That's you know what, overall this show did a lot. I was expecting to not like, from the bits that I didn't like, I would have thought that this show would be much worse than it ended up being. In the end, it was like good. I really redeemed like the ending. There was some weak episodes, there was some weak like scenes. A lot of shows, they have like, you got many like long running TV shows. There's some seasons that are weaker than other seasons. This is pretty much something that's common. And even there's a lot of shows where they're episodically inconsistent. Some episodes are much better than other episodes. This is not super. This is slightly more rare, but Doctor Who, that sort of thing, they all exist. Star Trek, these things are pretty common. But a show that's like scene to scene, massively inconsistent quality, that's kind of rare, and that's kind of what this show is. When it's good, it's really good. But when it's bad, oh boy, is their writing and acting pretty fucking awful. I think the bodyguard character is probably my least favorite. Well, aside from Dirk, who they just completely ruined from the books. But I mean, I don't even see him as the same character because they changed his character so much. Aside from Dirk, the bodyguard, Farah is just she just has basically no personality and exists solely to like to be functional in the plot. I mean, I just do not find her interesting at all. And she's supposed to be the main love interest. It's like, yeah, you didn't really do much to flesh out that character, did you? Either way, I like the fact that they just went full in on the surreal aspects and like made it they went full anime with it. You know, they just were like, yeah, fuck it, we got time traveling steampunk badasses now, who wears mecha suits and shoot people, and souls can be trapped in dogs, and they didn't pull any punches, which is good. That's what you need for a show like this, and they did it. So that was season 1. Let's really hope that season 2 lives up to season 1, because I'd have to say I thoroughly enjoyed it. I mean, I watched the whole thing, and that is rare for me. I'm the sort of person that drops things the second that I don't enjoy it, and I enjoyed this the entire way through. So that is nice. On to season 2. You know, one thing about sleep deprivation that just I never see mentioned anywhere is the shits. See, every time I get this little sleep, every time I stay up all night, which, to be fair, has only been a few times. Okay, well, I've stayed up all night before, right? But generally, this is after having been out all night, so I'm incredibly tired and I just fall asleep. Whereas now I can stay up all night after just having been on the computer all night, in the internet, in the wired all night, right? So I'm not physically tired, so it's a different experience, and I always get the shits. It always fucks with my stomach. I feel weird in the gut area, and then I get the shits. It's just interesting that it's all linked together. Everything's interconnected. I didn't plan my breaths properly for this segment. It's a little difficult, this, what do they call it? Breathing? A little bit difficult. So yeah, I am Jesus Christ. I am Jesus Christ. I willed a desk into existence. You can't say you've done that, can you? You've never just been like, I need a new desk, and then a new desk presents itself in front of you. You've never done that, but I have, because I am Jesus Christ. You know, I don't want to brag about it or anything. It wasn't my choice, but here we go. Here I am. I got the long hair and the beard and everything. I'm halfway there already, being a totally not Middle Eastern and you know, from London, white boy. That's Jesus, right? Non-religious, doesn't believe in God. That sounds like Jesus to me. So I'm pretty sure I'm him. Couple things. First of all, greater good. Nothing much really. Yeah, you know, do what you should. Greater good. Here I am, being cold, sacrificing myself for the greater good, aka no good reason. And there you are out there in the forest, wandering around like some sort of elk, like some sort of lost pigeon, looking to find your way back home with your letter, you know, that you're delivering to your master. And then here I am out in the fucking jungle. I'm a snake, just fucking dangling, you know? That's all I got to say on that issue. Not sure how to make that any more clear, really. I feel like that's the best metaphor you're going to get. So here I am, pretty deep into sleep deprivation at this point. Starting to get some of those peripheral flickers, those shadows, those flickering shapes at the side of your peripheral vision, the moving surfaces, you know, like classic good shit that comes with this particular method of inebriation. Wouldn't go as far to say I recommend it to anyone. Wouldn't go as far as to say it's a pleasant experience per se, but it's certainly not boring. As long as you have stuff to do that doesn't require your full attention, as long as you planned for this. And fortunately, I have Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency on Netflix.com to aid me through this tough time in my life, as well as uh some let's plays on YouTube, you know, the sort of thing that doesn't require your full attention, and I have plenty of tea. So yeah, in general, can't say I'm doing that great, to be honest, but you know, not much, you know. Sometimes language, at this point, language just sort of breaks down, you know. Language is built for a different form of consciousness than the form of consciousness I'm currently inhabiting, you know. At this point, language just sort of doesn't do its job properly of you know, getting abstract thoughts from outside of my brain into something that is communicable to other people. Language doesn't really do that justice at this level. So it's gonna sound like I'm nuts, but really, what I have is just I've transcended, and I am Jesus Christ. I willed a desk into existence. I ran a glow in the dark over in my car back in the 90s or whatever. I don't remember. Rest in peace, the legend. Yeah, this is the bit where I start beatboxing because it's just a more effective method of communication. Beatboxing is a more effective method of communication than speed. Yeah, you can tell I learned to beatbox around the time when dubstep was popular, and then never practiced it again, because all I can do is dubstep sounds. That's not beatboxing. That's a little bit of metal working its way in there. It's beatboxing a little bit lower. I got it sort of figured out, but then never perfected it because I just never cared about it enough to perfect it. A little more like I can't do it very well. At one point I was better at it than I am now, but I'm not gonna lie to you and say that I was ever that good. Mostly I'm good at the drumming, the mouth drumming stuff, not the like mouth synthesizer sound kind of things. Like I can do some sort of like faster drum and bass jungle kind of rhythms, but they don't sound that great because the drums are kind of like, you hear like the weak, you know, they're not, it's just not that great. I've heard much. I'm not a good beatboxer is what I'm trying to say here is that although I know how to beatbox better than most people in the world, I'm not actually a good beatboxer. I just like, I was a strange child. Spent a lot of time in my room making strange noises with my mouth. And when I say in my room, I also mean in school, in the back of class. This is kind of just an ongoing trend with me. Primary school, I used to do that sort of thing. In secondary school, I used to do that sort of thing. Even in the secondary school I went to after I got expelled, used to just sing in the back of class. That was a fun one. Used to just sing. Used to just sit there singing. Don't know what was going through my head at that point in my life, to be honest. Not quite sure what I was thinking. But there's something I used to do. That's pretty interesting. And I'm going to get back to finishing season 2 of Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency on Netflix. Some interesting stuff's happened since we last left off. First, I finished the first season where some interesting things happened. There's been big changes in the second season. I'm going to go ahead and say it. The second season, better than the first, writing-wise. It's a pretty big leap up, if I'm honest. But plot-wise, a little like young adult fiction-y. Got a little bit of I'm even sensing that, it's set in like a more rural, suburban, not suburban, like rural Americana town, Twin Peaks. I'm talking Twin Peaks here. It's got Twin Peaks in it. The whole thing's got a touch of the Twin Peaks, not a touch. The whole thing's Twin Peaks, but this is more Twin Peaks because it's not set in a city, and it's, a rural police department where weird things are going on in this small town and everyone has secrets, and it's all kind of surrealist, and there's a supernatural element, which is, so there's this detective that comes into this small town where strange things have been happening, and the detective has strange supernatural powers, which are never like fully explained, but are sort of explained in like a sort of way. And strange things have been happening in this town, and as they investigate further, it turns out that a lot of the people living in this small rural American town have some darker secrets, and there's a lot going on under the surface of this town, and the local police force is massively under-equipped to deal with this, and very surprised when all of this stuff goes down. Stop me if this reminds you of a certain TV show directed by a certain David Lynch. Yeah, it's literally Twin Peaks, but just worse. Imagine young adult Twin Peaks. Imagine Twin Peaks meets Percy Jackson. Is Percy Jackson even young adult? You hear that? That's called a plosive. Here's what you got. I gotta tell you this because otherwise you're never gonna know. You got sibilants, you got plosives, and you got fricatives. Fricatives is the only one that doesn't really like convey itself. Fricatives is stuff like but can be a plosive as well. But like plosive is when you store some air behind your mouth and you let it go, like a b or a p or a d less so, but definitely buzz and puzz, especially puzz. And sibilance is easy because it's just s sounds and sh sounds and t sounds, right? And then you got fricatives, which are like t sounds and stuff like that. K's and T's, that sort of thing, I believe. Unless fricatives is something completely different and I'm just lying to you right now. Is it a lie if you're not aware that you're lying? I keep saying this sort of thing, like maybe I'm just lying to you, I don't know. But maybe I'm just misinformed is what I'm trying to say here. So yeah, season 2, writing-wise, big step up, although still not that great. Definitely got a touch of the anime to it. And that's about all I got to say on that subject. Wow, we covered a lot of broad topics in this little segment. Can't wait to see what happens next. Hopefully I can stay awake for long enough to finish this podcast. Now it's time for the part of the show where I play for you some of the voice notes I've been leaving for myself as I've been going through this adventure. Warning, I don't remember making half of these, so Let's begin with the first one. This was made at 1:30 p.m. I am the most powerful being on planet Earth. Nobody can fuck with me. I live up in a tree, smoke like a monkey, drinking a bit of tea. Oh, I've got a couple teeth in my mouth. They don't come out. Sometimes I like to shout. Don't know what that's about. I'm a better rapper than Tupac, that's for sure. I'm talking about Tupac Shakur. Ain't nobody know I spit that hardcore. Get a couple sleeps out of me and I spit raw. Hey, what the fuck is this about? Suddenly I became a rhymer. Shouldn't have said that word, cause ain't that much rhymer. Yo, shut the fuck up, you motherfucking two-timer. I kill a motherfucker if he fucks with me, son of a motherfucking bitch fucker. Now it's time for the second voice note. This was made about 15 minutes later. Little best insult all time, best insult coming through. Choo-choo on the insult train. Ooh, first things first, man. Let me tell you one thing about salt. makes things taste better. There's a fact. There's one thing about it. We're back to it. Taking a step back here, going back, taking it back to the past, rewinding a step. Little step back to the past and rewinder. Talk about insult. Tell me an insult. Let me show you. You can be like, yo, you son of a motherfucker. Because everyone's son of a motherfucker. Think about it for 2 seconds with your brain cells. Everyone's son of a motherfucker, right? Oh God! Please get me out of here. I've been trapped in this cell, rotting away for 100 years in the dungeon below the palace gates. And now I've broken free, finally, to ride my dragon into the sun and murder the dwarves that killed my father, Gwendolyn. That was an elven laugh. The laugh of the Elven King. Only a true wizard would recognize that. And you are not a true wizard, Harry. So you'd better come with me at Hogwarts and I'll show you what's what. Very nice. Oh, it was a nice touch at the end. Shouts out to Past Me. Okay, this next one was made pretty shortly after that. Here we go. Anyone ever wanted to know a fact about me? Tell them this. I do shit my own way or no way. Listen to this. Ain't nobody ever drummed guitar before. Ah, fuck, my thumb! Ah, this hurts. This is painful. Ah, it's art. Pain for the sake of art. Ah, my fucking... Ow! Ah! This hurts. It's good art, it hurts. I'm in pain, it's good art, I'm in pain. It's good music, I'm in pain. I'm inventing new techniques, I'm an avant-garde genius. And there is my piece, I call it Madman in a Madhouse, aka Insane Asylum. But the insane asylum's actually his brain the whole time. That's what I call that piece. Come to my art exhibition at the Tate Modern on Tuesday at 5 p.m. to 6 a.m. in the morning, where I'll be demonstrating a few other pieces of performance art as well as some sculpture of strange puppetry by men clad only in green, and midgets running around like chickens. Except they're not really midgets. They're just children. Yes. Okay, now we're going to skip forwards a whole hour and a bit. About an hour and 15 minutes to the next voice. Oh, what's happening to me? Ooh. Well, that was weird. Suddenly choked on nothing. Not sure what's going on there. Here's the next voice note. You know, they call me Young Shits himself. That's it. And then shortly after that, actually, 2 hours after that, 2 hours after that. So yeah, quick news, good news. None of this is real. I'm not real. This phone that I'm currently speaking into, most likely not real. Universe, quite possibly an illusion. And I am Jesus Christ himself resurrected from the dead. Also, sleep was invented by the CIA in the 1970s along with birds in order to keep us distracted so we wouldn't find out the truth, because it turns out, of course, when you stay up, when you don't go to sleep, or when you don't take the mind control drugs that they administer to you while you're asleep, well, then you turn out to be able to process the reality of the situation. It turns out all you need to do is not sleep and you will slowly begin to grasp the truth. And that is why they don't want you to do it. That's why they tell you these lies that you need sleep. And that when really it's all a lie. It's all of it. And I am Jesus Christ. And the final voice note, please be warned, there's some rapping involved once more. Quite atrocious, if I do say so myself. It's time for me to spit some rapping. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Yo, I only spit the truth, that's why I got 7 wives. 1 wife for each eye I have. When I go to St. Ives, and I step outside, carry 7 knives. That's 1 knife for each wife. 1 wife to take each your 7 lives. Ever heard of a cat? It got 9 lives. Ever heard of me? 7 wives. That's 1 wife for each knife, for each eye I got up in my brain. But it causes me pain and strife, having so many wives and knives in my life. So I popped off to the moon for a little bit, needed a break from it all. But when I came back, they were all gone. And now I'm just sitting here, singing you this song. And there you go, that's the end of this segment. Thank you very much. Yeah. Netflix's Dirk Gently's Detective. Nope, I'm really trying here, but I've been up for a very long time. Netflix's Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency is a show severely lacking in identity. There are many, many problems with this show. However, despite most of these problems showing up in the first season, and especially my massive problems with the scripts being generally fixed by the time the second season happens, I found myself liking the first season a lot more somehow. See, I mean, I don't know how to describe it. This show made a lot more sense to me around a third of the way through the second series, or the second season, when I finally realised, oh, this show is aimed at 14-year-olds. That is when it clicked. Oh, this is young adult fiction. This is less Dirk Gently, more Twin Peaks meets fucking, I don't know. It's a really weird show in the way that like it exists and it shouldn't really, but I'm kind of glad it does. Despite the plot of the second season being much wider in scale, the potential consequences being much bigger, the conclusion was not nearly as satisfying as the first season, despite arguably much, much more happening. Now, I've been saying this entire time that characters will just act completely illogically sometimes, but that's normally in service of the script, and in general, rule of cool applies. In the first season, there's a lot of shit the characters will just do, and it's kind of written off because the point of the characters is that the universe is taking them to where they need to go. However, you can only use convenience as a plot contrivance so many times before it gets boring. So when you have possibly, in my opinion, the most interesting character in the show, as a concept, the only thing I can think of that's more interesting than a holistic detective is a holistic assassin. Her character is so fucking cool, so fucking Shadow the Hedgehog edgy, but like in the best way. It's amazing. And they just get rid of her for this, all the best things about her character for the second season. My favourite bits in the entire show were in the first season, where she can't be killed and she's just killing guys by accident and they turn out to be terrible people. But she can tell when people are terrible. So when her friend turns bad, she would have killed him before then, because she would have known, because the universe would have known that he was going to turn bad. So in the entire contrivance of the first season, where the whole thing is that it's such a stupid thing. Why did they make that happen? It doesn't make any sense why that character completely flipped. In the first season, he was great. It was really interesting. You got to see the beginnings of this person who's clearly a psychopath, who's never had a human relationship in her life, meeting a normal person, that normal person slowly falling to, I'm not sure if it's necessarily in love, but certainly developing a friendship with them, both of them going through this incredibly intense experience together and growing as people. You know, it's the longest she's gone without killing someone ever. She's never talked to someone this much, because she always just kills them. And it's amazing. And then in the second season, they just scratch it. They just get rid of that entirely. That guy just flips, and now he's a bad guy and doesn't talk to her, no longer friends, talks like a generic villain where it's all robotic and we must bring order to the world. Mate, you ruined it. You had something good and you've just fucked it up. Why? A lot of this stuff should have been saved for the third season. A big plot, what's it called? The 3-act structure, trying to remember it. Like the lowest point, that I believe is what it's called. The lowest point is when Dirk thinks that he's finally lost a case. We all know that it's not, because it's set up really obviously. But presuming that you didn't catch the obvious setup, or like you're kind of supposed to know that it's a story. You don't expect him to actually lose, but you can't subvert your expectations when you only have one series. Like you've only seen this narrative once before, so there's not that much expectations to subvert in the first place. It's a really, really weird choice to do this. I mean, I understand, but I just feel like they should have gone with that plot point the next season when there was more expectation to subvert. I just want to see Dirk doing cool things. Now, here's one thing I really liked about this season, is that before I was talking about how in the first season I wanted it to be sort of addressing what would happen if this person existed in real life, and they didn't do that. They just went for a sort of over the top thing. Now I realize now they were trying to do that in the first season, but just didn't do it very well because his characterization was too wacky. But in the second season they did a much better job of it, because they have him have a big thing about how everyone who gets involved with him gets killed. Basically the Doctor Who thing, where he doesn't want to really get close to people because they all get killed, but then he doesn't realize that he's actually good for people in general. And it's Doctor Who. It's stolen from Doctor Who pretty much directly. Again, do it in the third season once we've actually seen this happen more than once. But that was fine. I know I keep bringing this up, right? But the main character and his love interest have so little chemistry, especially in this season where they're barely together at all. They spend the entire time separated. Whereas the main character and Dirk, who is, again, clearly coded gay, why not just have them be a couple when you already have a gay couple in the show? Why not? It doesn't make any sense, because the gay couple that was in the show didn't need to be gay. Like, they could have just been a man and it didn't matter. That wasn't important for there was nothing about their characters that said, cool. Not saying that gay characters have to act stereotypically gay or whatever, but it didn't affect the plot. It seemed like it was just put in there to be a gimmick, right? It's cool. I don't have a problem with it. It's fine. But it didn't really so it could have been replaced with anything else, right? Whereas the main characters actually fit that, have good chemistry. It would work so much better. Why didn't they just do that? It doesn't make any sense. Anyway, let me get. Okay, so the oh my god, I have so many big problems with this show, despite the fact that it's also genius at some parts. There were so many points in this, watching these 2 seasons, where I was like, this is the cleverest thing ever fucking written. But I don't remember any of that shit, because as soon as it happens, the next scene, something fucking stupid happens. The entire character of the sister is supposed to be sympathetic, but is just not. I am the biggest sucker for goth/punk girls in the universe, and you fucked this one up so bad that I found her. How do you manage this? I don't understand. This is supposed to be, as far as I can tell, this is supposed to be a sympathetic character, but she's just acting illogically the entire time, and it's so frustrating. Her brother tries to do a good thing for her, and she just writes him off, and it's the point of the storyline where he admits that he didn't have the disease in the first place. By the way, a little aside here, this is something that just kept annoying me the entire time. The made-up disease that they have ends in itis. Itis means inflammation of. So what the fuck is it an inflammation of? It's a neurological, I mean, like, it's a psychological disease. It's not something that's... This show has turned me into a Tuvan throat singer. Sister character just... So he does the right thing by apologizing for lying to her, and then she just doesn't forgive him, which just makes her seem like a bitch, because you've only seen this character. They have one scene to show that he used to be a dick in the past, which is when he's at a bar, but doesn't even serve the purpose, because at the bar he is just being nice to his sister. So it just makes her look like a bitch. It just doesn't make her look like a nice person. How is this supposed to be a sympathetic character? I understand. If you found out your brother had lied to you, you would be pretty pissed off. But it takes her a season and a half, more than a season and a half, to come round to actually talk to him again. And it happens so quickly as well. Like, it's like, she hates him, she hates him, she hates him, she hates him. It's been like, remember, about like 2 months has gone past between seasons. She still hates him with like fiery rage and passion somehow. Hates him so much, despite like him being nothing but nice to her, and his lie being to protect her and make her feel good. He lied, well, partly for personal gain, but mostly to make her have hope, right? And then it all gets turned around in a 2-minute scene where they slap each other. What? Oh my god. And don't get me started on the fucking agent who's just so, like, his superpower is being incredibly stupid. I understand they're trying to build it to be something. He's not supposed to be just a normal human being. They tease it at the end that he can see the universal source code or whatever, and he's like, I understand now, which is clever. But he also just character flipped on, just fucking heel turned at whatever it's called, the reverse of a heel turn, in like a split second at the end. His character makes no sense. No one could possibly be that stupid and in such an important role. Like, it's supposed to be a competent and highly funded government agency, but he's clearly so incompetent. How did he... It makes no sense. It makes no sense. Oh god. But okay, firstly, not sure when they wanted you... I couldn't tell when they wanted you to figure out that the guy in the coma was the boy. But when I figured it out, I thought I'd figured it out later than they wanted me to. I was like, fuck, I missed it. But then they like did 3 more times when they went over the point to make it super clear, right? And then I was like, oh, maybe I actually figured it out earlier than I was supposed to. Because then there's like a big reveal moment later on, right? But I already knew it because they already made it super obvious. that was very confusing. I couldn't tell what I was supposed to be feeling there. Also, okay, the main villain is great. Very well, very very good character. Loved her. Great villain. Incredibly annoying, although her death wasn't quite satisfying enough. And this show's so weird because it does something so fucking genius. Like something's just the way things the what makes or breaks a show like this is that you have to set up all these separate elements and they have to all fall into place in a satisfying way. And this show 100% of the time nails that. It's just the characters that were in it. The plot is very good. Like sometimes they make things too obvious because, especially in the first season, you had to be juggling a lot of new information at once. In the second season, they toned it down a little bit, but not that much. But they toned it down a little bit, and they also drove it home a lot more. Did they even explain where the boat came from? Did I just miss that? Where did the boat come from? A lot of the last episode was really weird. Like, it seemed rushed. Oh yeah. So, the killy stabby holistic assassin girl, my favorite character. She goes the entire season. She's like, I'm done. She's like, I don't kill people anymore. I'm taking control of my own life. There's kind of the theme. There's kind of a little bit of a theme going on in the whole thing about control versus fate versus, like, you know, how to taking control of your life means. That's kind of the point of the villain. There's a big thing at the end, not that big, where she's like, I'm taking control of my life. There's one, let me take control of my life. And then Elijah Wood's like, taking control of your life means changing yourself, not changing the world around you. And it's like all profound and themes and shit, which is a good theme to have. I'm not gonna lie, not the sort of thing that's been like explored super thoroughly, so I don't have a problem with it. But so this holistic assassin girl, I've forgotten her name. She is supposedly taking control of her life, making her own decisions by choosing to go against the universe's will by not killing people all the time. And it seems to be working out for her relatively fine, except for the fact that she spends basically the entire show in a jail cell, despite the fact that she is shown as soon as it's shown that she's in the jail cell, it's shown that she can just walk out of the jail cell at any time, but she chooses to be in there, which is pretty out of character and doesn't really make any sense because she's the sort of person that gets bored very easily, and exists for her to form a friendship with the pink haired guy, despite the fact that it never really pays off that much. Like it has a minor payoff, but not like a super plot important payoff for having them trapped next to each other for the entire fucking show. And then after going so long not killing people, even when there's a big showdown with the like Men in Black guys, I forgot what the name is, Black Knight or something, Black something. She doesn't kill anyone. Only the pink haired guy kills people. It's like they're teasing you, and then finally there's a scene where there's this army and she is the only one there. Like, they've killed everyone else, and then she is now in the fantasy world, in the dream world, in the fairy tale world, and facing off against this army of 4,000 people or something. And you're like, oh, that's fucking sick. But then it happens off camera. She kills all of them off camera. You don't see it. You just see her. And then that's it. Then she's just regretful. She turns herself into Blackwing, I think they're called. And then she finds out that the guy that she had all that character development with in the first season has turned out to be a cunt. The show makes very little sense. Like, the characters are just nonsense. Also, Manic Pixie Dream Girl. Why? Why did you have to put a Manic Pixie Dream Girl in there? Just have her be a normal person or something. Do you know how much more if you want to go quirky Tumblr, quirky character writing, instead of writing the girl whose power is to transform, so this girl's power is to transform into literally anything. She's a holistic actor. She can literally play any role she spent 6 years as a chair or something, right? And instead of making her like, do you know what would have been fucking hilarious? Do you know what would have been the best thing they could have done? You finally see her as a human. You finally have like a conversation with her towards the end of the show, and she's just the most boring, normal person imaginable, who just does not like. She just acts as if everything's completely normal, and she's just not interesting at all. Because that would have been the most interesting thing. That would have been fucking genius and hilarious. But instead, they went with the really cliched, like manic pixie dream girl kind of thing, where she's all like, "Oh, and the flow, and the and this little snail, he talks in my head, and he told me to do this." And I mean, it's fine, it works for the character, but it's been done so many times. Why do you have to do it again? And then I've just got so many problems, so many little problems that just add up. Like so many little, like the shootout with the mage when he's in the real world ends with a car explosion from one bullet. Why are we still doing this? She just shoots the tire of the car at the trunk, and it explodes in a massive fiery ball of death and kills the mage, who was nowhere near the car at the time, and also has magical powers that I'm sure could defend. Like he can block bullets and shit. How can't he block fire? That is so incredibly dumb. Also, the fact that every other character in the entire show dies instantly or almost instantly when they're shot. The rules of this universe are generally the rules of TV gunfights. If you get shot, you die. Unless you're an important character, I guess, because then 3 important characters all get shot multiple times and all survive. Maybe I'm not giving the writers enough credit, and this is clever writing to do with how the universe needs them to be alive for whatever plan they're trying to expand this into. I don't know if this is ever going to get another season. I somehow doubt it's ever going to get another season. They're setting up for something big, which, by the way, the sister is the heart of, who is the worst character in the show. So yeah, you done fucked up. You fucked that up. You make the and then you got a lot of it just makes no sense. So, like, the big revelation is that Dirk finds the mural in the dream world of the real world. But that doesn't actually lead to anything. It's just the guy who was in the coma the whole time. But I figured that out. That was pretty clear. Like, they didn't need... The thing with the... Oh, my God. It doesn't make any... Why would they... I don't understand why that detail's in there. A lot of details are just weird. I mean... The thing is, they've done so much to, like, you can tell that they were thinking about internet comments and how to deal with nitpicky internet comments. Like, they were thinking, that one of them was like, okay, how has this rainbow-haired 6'9" looking girl survived this whole time in this dreamland? Where's she getting her food from? And then they thought about it for a bit, and they were like, "Oh, we'll just have hamburgers grow from a bush, and then we'll have that show in a scene, so no one asked that question." So they thought shit like that through. But they didn't think basic character motivations through. And the very last shot is of the main bad guy, the woman who is now trapped on that train in terrible green screen. Now trapped on that train, and they reveal it as if it's a big reveal, but they already showed her getting trapped on the train earlier on in the episode. She vanishes, and then the camera pans up, the train makes a choo-choo sound, and it zooms in on the train, and we've been told before that the maid was banished to the train beforehand. So the end reveal revealed nothing. We were already aware of all this information. And also, like, that's not that much of a bad punishment, really. Also, why did she have magical powers now? All the main characters now have magical powers. A bit weird, bit don't know where that came from. A little bit random. I mean, obviously it was planned because it all makes sense of their illness, the made up illness, but apparently is magic. It doesn't make any sense. Also, how does the magical woman in the fantasy world somehow know the same, like, it's a fantasy world. Why would the magic in the fantasy world be the same as like actual magic that exists? It's a dream world. It should be like fantasy. Why does she know things that are relevant to the real world? It doesn't make any sense. Like, why is she privy to this information? Where did she learn all this stuff from? That's just never explained, and she's immediately killed, like with no one gives a shit at all. Oh my god. I keep shitting on this show because its character writing is so terrible, but the plot is so good. Like the way things fall into place is so genius. I don't know if it's genius, maybe not genius. Some things are very like way too obvious, but especially in the first season. Actually, some things in the second season as well. But in general, everything hits that satisfying note of like, here's a wacky thing that seems completely unrelated, and then it slowly builds up, and you could just see like, suddenly it all clicks into place. Very cool. Let me think of an example so I can demonstrate this to you in a if you haven't seen the show. Not that anyone who hasn't seen the show is making it 40-50 minutes into a podcast which is mostly about that show, but let me try and think back to like a really satisfying one. Okay, so all right, so in this season, right, it starts off with Dirk Gently. The like the crux of the show is missing. He's been kidnapped by a government organization that is doing tests on him. Suddenly he appears. Suddenly, while the main Elijah Wood character and Farah are out looking for him, a car falls from a tree behind them. They turn around, look at the car, investigate. There's a dead body in the car, and in the trunk of the car is Dirk Gently. Right? Whoa. Crazy shit. Crazy, right? Turns out literally every detail of that scene is important. Why is Dirk in the trunk of the car at that very moment? Well, that's because someone else from the facility he was being kept in had the ability to get into his room. And all you're shown is this other person, which is, by the way, the shape-shifting girl, the holistic actor girl, sneaking into his room and pouring water on him. And then he disappears, and then you don't see where he goes until later on you see that he appeared in the back of the trunk. So already that's a payoff. But you later learn on that shape-shifting girl only has shape-shifting powers, not teleportation powers. So how did he get out of the room? It's not explained. All that's explained is how she got into the room by transforming into like a butterfly and flying through the air vents. But it's not explained how he got out of the room, because he got teleported miles and miles away into the trunk of a car just in time for this other person to see them. How did that happen? Well, the people who owned the car turned out to be one of them, a woman, dead inside the car, who had been dead for quite a long time. Turns out this person was part of a murder case in the 70s, which was unsolved. These people had a house, right? And in this house, they have a big property, and they had a son who drew murals all over the walls. And essentially, to sum up a really, really long story, one day a boat fell from the sky. These parents found a baby in that boat. Turns out that when that baby has dreams, those dreams turn into reality. The reality dreams were actually like not nice things. They were like monsters and shit. And so they basically tore the family apart. And to deal with this, the kid decided to create an entire fantasy universe in his head, which was so powerful, like tested the limits of his powers so far that he fell into a deep coma forever. So he was in a deep coma, and inside this fantasy universe, inside this kid's head, there is a mage, like a witch, a magical witch, right? A good witch. And this magical witch somehow is aware, not somehow, is aware because later on in the series, the guy in the coma, when he was older, was discovered by secret agents who were the same ones holding Dirk Gently, who took him in, and while they were moving him, the stress caused him to have a stroke. This stroke broke down the barriers between his fantasy world and the real world, causing them to leak into each other. Then the magical witch character in the fantasy world could see into the real world, but not very well. So she made a connection with the shapeshifting girl and made a deal that she could use her powers through the shapeshifting girl, through which she went to Dirk Gently and teleported Dirk Gently into the trunk of that car because she could see the future. That bit's not really that clear. I'm sure there is an explanation, but I am very tired. In fact, I'm pretty sure that bit is explained. I just don't remember it right now. But it's all connected, man. It's all connected. And that was just one tiny story thread. That thread's actually way more complicated than I just explained it. I just explained it very quickly, but that is literally the entire show. And there's like loads of shit going on. Like there's a fucking, oh my god, where do I even start? It's so complicated. There's a fucking evil mage in that universe who escapes to the real world. There's zombies. There's a group of soul-sucking vampires called the Rowdy Three, who are actually 4 people, but also sometimes 2 people. One of whom is not actually part of the group. One of whom is the sister of the main character who doesn't have any powers, but then it turns out she does have powers, but the powers were actually a terrible psychological illness. It's mad. It's mad insanity of a show, but in the best possible way. I can see how the person who made A Scar No One Else Can See made this show. It's very similar logic. It's crazy. This shit's crazy. Overall, would recommend if you approach it as a light novel from the late 90s, early 2000s, and that light novel anime adaptation, because that explains the bad scripting. You can just write it off as poor translation to English, and explains the weirdly, just the weird way characters are, because that's just how things are in light novels from that era, and how it's dark fantasy in a modern urban setting sometimes. You know, it all fits in that. So I just imagine that, and in the second season, just think Twin Peaks, but like written by someone who's. Imagine if you described Twin Peaks to someone whose only context of media was musicals, and that you asked them to write something that was Twin Peaks, but without any musical numbers in it, but with the same logic as how Broadway musicals work. And that is how the second season is. Kind of. Not really at all. That was a terrible job of explaining it. It has nothing to do with the books at all. If the first season had nothing to do with the books, the second season has nothing to do with the books at all. Completely just off on its own direction, unrelated, just leaving them behind in the dust. Just does not give a fuck about the source material, which I kind of like. It's better than badly adapting the source material. I think that's pretty much. I think I've just exhausted everything I had to say. I know as soon as I put the mic down, I'm gonna think of something else to say about the show. But it's a weird show to have watched while you're staying up for many, many hours, because it's all about how everything's a giant conspiracy, and the universe is interconnected, everything's interconnected, and those sorts of thoughts can really seem appealing to you when you've been awake for a long time. So that's a weird choice that I made there, but I'm kind of glad I did it. And once again, this is just another example of how it's all connected, because watching that show and also deciding to stay up all night was linked and connected. There we go. It all makes sense now. I think I said earlier on in this podcast that my mum had Netflix, but then decided that she didn't want it anymore. She's decided to keep it, I believe. She's decided she's keeping Netflix. It's now time. It is now time for the end of the waking period of my life for now, because this podcast is over. I have stayed awake for 2 days straight, and it is complete. The sleep deprivation cast has been completed. The quest is over. There's nothing more for you here. I'm gonna go to sleep in about half an hour-ish. I'm done. I've completed my task. It's crazy to say, really. I can't imagine being asleep right now. I feel like I've transcended. But that's just how it goes. Thank you very much if you've actually been listening to this podcast. I hope to do another one, but not for a while, because I don't think I can take many more of these all-nighters. But I do hope to do another one. Hopefully, I'll watch another show as well, because that was a good thing. That was a good idea. Yeah, I guess I'll see you in the next one. If you want to help me pay my rent and support me doing insane shit like this, head over to patreon.com/no thank you. The O's are zeros. And give me $1 and you get 5 tracks a month for free. I should count how many tracks are out on Patreon right now. Because I'm curious. If you were to follow me right now, how much content would you get for $1? Like you just pay $1, right, and you get a bunch of free content. Let me find out. See if it will show on here. There must be a way to see it like instantly. Does it say? It doesn't say. I might have to count them. I don't want to have to count them. There must be a better way than this. I'm sure it must say how many you've done, like in all. Oh, fuck's sake, it doesn't. Not here anyway. There probably is a way to find it, but it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot of songs. It's a lot of songs. It's like probably 3 albums worth of songs at this point or more. Oh, talking about albums, guess who's got a new album coming out on February 1st? I'll give you one guess. It's me. It's me. That's the answer. I spoiled it for you because it was me the whole time. Yes. Isn't that crazy? It's going to be good. I'm going to release singles in the lead up to it as promotion, almost like a real artist or something. It's going to be fucking crazy. Oh, man. 2019, year of the no thank you. Year of me. It's insane. I never expected this to happen. I never expected to have a year. And when I say this, what I mean is that if this year doesn't work out for me, there is no hope for my future. So it's not that I know it's going to be the year for me. It's that if it isn't the year for me, then there's never going to be a year for me. This is the make or break. This is the sink or swim. So yeah, that's fun. This isn't stressful. I'm not under any stress. It's time for me to end the podcast. So goodbye. Patreon.com/no thank you. The O's are zeros. Buy my new album. Peace. Yeah.